Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Zea Time Chat, the podcast for Gen Z by Gen Z.
I'm Maren, here with my co-host, Sofí.
What tea are you drinking today, Maren?
I am switching things up today. I'm drinking some ginger tea. What
Ooh,
about you?
really good for circulation.
Yeah, it's good for like
Yeah,
calming your tummy, I think, as well.
yeah, it's so good. Good choice. So, I'm a dork. I'm drinking Princess Diana English breakfast tea.
Oh my God, no.
Um,
Where did you even get that?
okay, I saw it on oh my God, it was Marshall's. They had it style section, and it was so great because so this was the last one of Diana, and then they had like everyone else,
Uh-huh.
but Diana was the one that was like sold out, and then no one had touched the Charles and Camilla one, so I thought that was like
Obviously.
divine retribution. It's amazing. I was so happy, and I got the last one, and I've been drinking it like all week, and just yeah.
Is it
And this is
actually, does it say made in the UK? I was
does
just
it
gonna say because it's really funny because I'm in the UK and you're drinking like British tea, and I'm drinking tea that my mom sent me from California. Just a fun
well, it
little
looks like it.
switcheroo.
Yeah, English tea is the world's finest tea. So I'm guessing
I feel like
it
that's a
is.
lie
I mean, it's.
though. But
I
anyway,
feel like it might be. Anyway, the point is it has Princess Diana on it, and that's
absolutely
the reason
iconic.
why I got it.
I
And
love
this
it.
is the only tin I'm gonna use for all of my future English breakfast teas. Just yeah. Anyway, back to the podcast. I thought that was a perfect, side
So,
note. I don't
yeah.
know.
I
Oh,
love it.
Maren, what are we talking? Oh, a little check-in. What are you reading currently, Maren?
Um, I have this bad habit of reading like 5 books at once and not really working through any of them in a consistent fashion, but eventually making it uh through each of them. So my like for pleasure or like leisure book, my non-school book, it's called Empty Without You, and it's the intimate letters of Eleanor Roosevelt and Lorena Hicken, I think is her.
Ooh.
I don't even know what her name is at the moment. I'm sorry, the book's in the other room. But basically, Eleanor Roosevelt, our former first lady, and her lesbian lover. Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. It's all of their like love letters back and forth. And it's my favorite thing in the world right now.
Okay, you're gonna have to let me borrow that book. That sounds amazing.
It
And
is.
this is actually making me really happy because I'm also reading a really gay book right now too.
Yes.
So I'm actually listening to an audiobook at the moment, but it's called The Wife in the Attic, and it sounds really gory, but it's really gay. I don't know if you've read it before, but Jane Eyre,
Yes.
the classic literature book from Charlotte Bronte, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you know how in the book, and this is not a
The
spoiler.
crazy wife in the attic.
Yeah, but hold on, because this gets a major twist on it. Because in Jane Eyre, the woman working for the house falls in love with the man of the house, right? This is now the opposite, where the woman in the house falls for the lady of the house, or the woman working. So
Is this for real right now?
yeah, it's for real.
I,
And
no joke,
oh,
was telling my housemate that somebody needed to write that book the other
it's
day, and I didn't know
real.
it existed.
It's amazing. And I mean, so hold on, I need to plug in my laptop. So I was an AP Lit student, so I'm, like all into, I mean, I have a very deep foundation of like really classic literature, literary classics, right? And I've always talked about how like, useless that foundation is.
Mhm.
Because I'm never going to use it, but whatever. But just making that connection has made my like years of reading the classics like worth it.
Yeah.
Because you're making this like connection to now like a 21st century super gay book, and it's like amazing. And then it's like in that gothic literary fashion, so I
I
love
love that, which is oddly just like so much better suited, I feel like, to lesbian relationships than
know.
like heterosexual ones.
Yeah. And besides that, I was rereading Pride and Prejudice again because I got a really fancy like copy of it from Costco where it looks really cute. Um
Nice.
I'll show it if I find it, but yeah. But that one's also, I think, a very like gay book if you really think about it. All
Arguably, okay, as much as I love Darcy and Elizabeth, I kind of think Elizabeth and Charlotte are the ultimate gay couple in there,
Okay,
and
no.
it's just
I would like
bypassed.
I would like to argue that the best gay couple in that book is Darcy and Bingley. But that's just me.
Mm,
Anyway, going back to
interesting. I'm gonna have to think about that one. That's gonna keep me up at night.
we're gonna have to have this like whole discussion in another episode, because I will go through like the Wattpad fan fiction that
Oh my
I
god,
found about Darcy and Bingley, but
that's gonna be a
like,
whole rabbit hole.
that's gonna be a whole rabbit hole. Because I, I mean, Wattpad gay smut is like, that's the epitome of my identity. So not like I read it that much, and I didn't even read it that much, but there's certain ones that I just connect with. Specifically the Nick and Gatsby ones, but again, that's going to be another from
Yeah,
the Great
absolutely.
Gatsby.
I see that. Um I think this is the one thing that people who identify as queer in any way drive straight people crazy with, is by looking at classical like characters in movie or literature and being like, those friends should have been love interests, and people will be like, why are you ruining it? I'll be like, no, you don't understand the chemistry
No,
there. It's not platonic.
they don't understand the chemistry. They don't understand like the like subtle like notes of gayness, in like all classic literature. And I've had this conversation with so many people, especially when we were like in the Shakespeare unit of school,
I
because
feel
that's
like
all.
those characters are overtly gay. Like there's nothing hidden about it.
I mean, Mercutio, really?
Yeah.
Anyway,
This is gonna be a whole nother episode. I'm sort of like, should we
yeah,
change the topic of this?
I know, maybe.
But no.
No, we'll have to come back to
We'll
it.
put a pin in that one though, because I
Yeah.
feel like there's just so much to say there.
Yeah.
Anyway, I love that our reading material is sort of synced up in that way.
Yeah.
Speaking of syncing up,
What are we talking about today, Maren?
on the podcast today, we're going to talk about something a little bit lighter. I would say silly, but I guess it can be silly. It's like the most human experience I can think of, which is menstruation. Our last episode was on violence against women, and that was a little bit heavier of a topic, obviously. So we decided we'd pick on something a little lighter, but still focused on. Actually, I'm not going to say that. Never mind. Gonna edit that bit out. So let's start at the beginning. In terms of your experience around periods and menstruation, like growing up, was it something that you talked about in your household? Were you aware of it like before you yourself sort of like moved into your teenage pubescent years?
Yeah, it's really funny because the first time I heard about periods was my cousin actually had hers, and she's only like 2 or 3 years older than me. And she had it when she was, I want to say 13, so I was like 11ish, maybe a little younger, but it was really funny because we were all camping, and she had gotten hers like a few days prior to us going camping. and we were at the lake as usual, and all of us were, very like fishes. We were, always in the water and stuff. So when she wasn't in the water, we were like, oh, like why, like what are you doing?
Mhm.
And she was like, and she was straight up like, I will never swim again, I'm on my period. She was very dramatic about it. It was really funny. um and then when we go to Mexico in 2 months, I'm not even going to be able to swim there because I have my period. And I was like, like, what's that? And because I had no idea, what that was, that even happened. And she was like, women bleed constantly, and that's our, um that's what happens to women when they get a certain age. And then and so, as a 9, 10, 11, sorry, my dad's coming in. As like a 9, 10, 11-year-old, I was super, super confused and devastated because I thought I was never going to swim after, I got my
Oh
period.
no.
I was completely, completely devastated. And so I like ran and was like crying to my mom. And
No.
she was so mad because, my cousin said completely false information.
Right.
And so that's how that conversation started. So it was a really weird, start to,
Mhm.
like knowing what it was about and stuff. But after that, I wouldn't say it's taboo in my household. I just think it's not like, something that we really talk about that much.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's just kind of like, it happens. I would say like my brothers are fully aware that that happens because, they're humans, but they would never have that conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. I That's really interesting. I can't imagine how traumatized you must have been hearing that information. Be like, oh my God, being a woman fucking sucks.
Yeah, no, and then in the water, and then
Yeah.
thinking that that was going to be the last time I was swimming ever.
Yeah. I definitely,
Yeah.
well, that's later on. Well, I'll say my experience as a kid was so different than that. Um, I guess mainly I have two older sisters. And and my mom was a midwife for most of, or she still is a midwife. Um, and so, and my older sisters are 7 and 10 years older than me. So like menstruating and like that part of life was just constantly in my awareness. Not constantly, but I mean, like, I don't remember a time when I like learned what it was or I didn't know what it was. I'm pretty sure I explained to other kids in my class what it was at probably a premature time.
Yeah.
I was that kid. um, so I don't know. Yeah, I think it was just sort of always in my awareness, and it was a very open conversation. My dad, I think by the nature of having three daughters, was just like very open and chill about the whole thing. And it was never an awkward like, oh, that's like woman's talk, I will not participate in that. It was just sort of always part of life. So I think it's pretty much an anomaly to have an experience like that these days.
Yeah, and I think it's not something that, you're too young to hear about. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's very natural. It's not, like anything with like a sexual undertone, it's literally nature. So I
Yeah.
wouldn't think like if I ever had kids, like I would stop them from knowing that, or, try to like push back them knowing about it
Mm-hmm.
you know, at any point. But I know it's definitely a reality that people don't, have that conversation with their kids
Yeah.
until they're older.
Yeah. Well, and it's tragic to me too to think that a lot of people get like when they have their first period, one of the first things people say is like, "Oh, you're a woman now, you can have kids." And I'm like, "No,
Yeah.
that I
Yeah,
mean,
that's not what
yeah,
that means.
sort of, but also no."
You're like, yes, but
But
no.
no. Do
Yeah.
you remember your experience of like getting your first period? Were you in school? Was it a stressful thing? What was that like? If you're
So
comfortable sharing.
Yeah, no, of course. Again, really weird experience, but my grandmother had just passed away, and that's not funny, but like the entire experience is a little funny. And we had gone to Monterey as like a memorial,
Mhm.
not a service. She had already had her like viewing and funeral and all that, but just kind of like to pay your respects, and she really enjoyed Monterey. So
Mhm.
so we had gone to the beach. Um, and I had like a mark, and I was confused because I just assumed that I had sat in something, or something like that. But I was just like kind of like caught up in other stuff that day, so I wasn't really
Mhm.
paying attention to it, and then I had gone to the bathroom and then was super confused. And I was like, no, like this isn't my first period, because in my mind I thought it was going to be like a gush,
Mhm.
and so it
Mhm.
was like unavoidable that that was your period, but it
Yeah.
was very like spotting,
Mhm.
and so I remember just like wrapping my underwear in like toilet paper and trying to be like, is this what that is, like what is that?
Yeah.
And then when I finally got home, I told my mom, and I was like, I don't know what that was, and she's like, no, I think that was your period. And then the following days it was definitely confirmed that that was my
Yeah.
so again, very weird experience, and very like confusing, because that wasn't what I had imagined it, and like
Mhm.
visualized in my mind. And it's always comforting if you're like awaiting something, and then it comes exactly as you thought it would be.
Mhm.
And that's not how it was. So
Yeah.
yeah, then that led to confusion, and led to like, is that what this is that like not what it is, what's happening,
Yeah. But
and
it
did
happened
I
and you
sit on
just like
something?
dealt with it and just sort of like, took care of
Yeah,
it that way.
yeah, yeah, fun.
That's interesting. It's sort of similar. I think my like preconceptions about starting my period were the same because I think I'd read about it in like books of like, girls or young women like bleeding for the first time and waking up and their sheets are covered in blood. Not in like a scary way, but in like a shocking sort of like overwhelming
Yeah.
way. And that's definitely how I thought it was going to go. I felt like a little bit prepared, I think maybe like a couple months before. My mom had sort of been like, so this is a thing that might happen for you at some point, and like here are some pads that are kind of just like mentally preparing me, but not in a scary way, just like this is what happens. And it was after school, I think I was like 13. And I used to go work at like the barns. I used to ride horses. And so I'd go and work off my lessons. I'd go clean stalls and teach for a couple hours after school with my trainer. And I was there and I was like working hard, and I went to the bathroom, and I think all we had was like a porta potty. Um, and I realized I had started bleeding, and I was like, I think I was too busy to like panic, but I was like, well, shit, this is a thing that's happening. And I think I just like filled my underwear with like toilet paper and was like, well, I guess I just have to
Yeah.
move on with my day. And went back to like
Oh, yeah.
doing farm chores.
Yeah.
And that was it. It's basically how I still deal with it today.
Yeah. We're like, oh, okay. um, yeah, no, it's definitely, a weird experience. And I think, it's funny how like put to the side it is, because,
Mm.
every woman goes through it. And so it's really weird that um like people sometimes don't take it seriously, you know,
Yeah.
um, and it's not like, um, because cramps, are a real thing, and
Mm-hmm.
that could really, affect your day to day
Mm-hmm.
activities, um, even like other like side effects where, I know that there are a lot of like period headaches, period backaches,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
all this like sensitivity, but it's kind of just like pushed to the side because it's a very mundane thing, but then it's taboo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really weird how that went down.
Yeah. Have you ever had an experience like from the day you started and up until now, where you felt like, whether like mentally, like you felt like you couldn't do something, or you were actually prohibited from participating in something due to either like limitations in the kind of products you had access to, or like physical like conditions coming from your period, like cramps so bad you couldn't participate in a sport or something like that.
And it's funny because definitely, and when like the first few years that I was having my period, I had no cramps,
Mm-hmm.
like zero. There was no any cramping whatsoever. And then I remember one day I had just come home from or I was coming home from lacrosse, and which is a sport I play, or I played in high school,
Mm-hmm.
and we had stopped to eat something, and I thought I was like dying, and I thought like my insides were just like turning, like cramping. It
Yeah.
was the worst experience. And then I was like, what the hell is this? And to top it off, it was just me and my dad. So it was really, um awkward to be like, you know, I'm cramping a lot. And so
Yeah.
I had like called mom or something because I wanted to confirm that this was, a period cramp. And she's like, yeah, it is. Um, and then she was like, when you get home, you could like make chamomile, just like lay down with a heat pack. But I just like couldn't get comfortable in my seat. So I was just like, I don't think I'm gonna make it home. It was the worst thing ever. And then after that, I would get them every once in a while. Not every single, day in my during my cycle, but it was like, like one day I would get really bad cramps, and
Mm-hmm.
they are just disabling
Yeah.
sometimes, and you don't want to be the person that's like, oh, I have period cramps, I can't run the mile, in school, because that's
Yeah.
always comes up. But again, it's something that's really real, and that's really, hard to deal with. I remember I knew like someone at school who would just like be on the floor in like a fetal position,
Mm-hmm.
and I felt so bad because I knew what that felt like. But she would have it like every single day of her cycle, and she would just like be unable to move, and like all of that stuff. Um and that's happened to me a few times at school, but like you just try to like power through it.
Uh-huh.
um Besides that, I mean, um, in the beginning, I wasn't using tampons, so going back to my story, I wasn't able to swim. But it wasn't, like that that came up that much. And then so my family, we do a lot of like things to honor, our ancestors and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So we go
Mm-hmm.
the sweat lodge. And we used to go a lot. There's a place, I don't know if it's not in Hollister, but it's a little farther away from San Jose, called Indian Canyon,
Mm-hmm.
and they have sweat lodges. And when you're on your period, um, people who follow a lot of indigenous practices know that your period is something very sacred and something very like important to protect, because it's something to do with your womb and your like mothering organ.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily saying you must mother if you have a uterus, but something that's very important to your life. So when you're on your period, you're not allowed to do anything super um physically taxing. So
Mm.
like you're not supposed to be working, you're not supposed to be doing this, you're not supposed to be doing like that. You're not like supposed to be like lifting anything. There's this like whole idea with people who like practice indigenous practices, where like you're not supposed to be doing anything. And I remember one time we were going to go to the sweat lodges, and they were like, oh no, you're on your period, right? And you're not able to go in there, because when you're in there, you're it's very physically taxing to do a sweat lodge, because
Mm-hmm.
it's supposed to be something very cleansing and very spiritual. And so if you're on your period, you're not allowed to do it. So that, I would say, is something that I was kept from when I was on
Yeah.
my period, and I didn't find that offensive whatsoever, because that's that's the thought, and that's the belief.
Mhm.
But it was a little weird, you know, to think that you know, like my ancestors didn't think that, or use, or oh, I'm trying to think of the word, like identified that time as
Mhm.
something where you aren't supposed to be pushed that much, you know, because
Mm. Mhm.
but in today's society that's not the belief, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's really an interesting one to think about. I think it definitely brings up a good point about because it's something that's only experienced by, or not, I shouldn't say only, but it's
Yeah.
experienced by, you know, a little bit more than 50% of the population.
Right.
But yet it gets written off all of the time.
Yeah.
And obviously everyone experiences, you know, menstrual pain to different degrees.
Mhm.
Um, but you know, things like getting sick days, or not sick days, but like menstrual leave. I know that's something that's been talked about and floated in, you know, very like liberal policy circles about how if women
Right.
need it, they should be able to take that time off, or work remotely, which I think is really interesting now. I mean, I know the disabled community has sort of been saying there should be flexible working conditions, and this pandemic has
Yeah.
proved that we can do that. So it's interesting to look forward. Maybe that sort of flexibility in working and schooling
Yeah.
environments can be applied to, you know, meeting people's needs in terms of menstruation.
Mhm.
I know for me as a kid, sorry, going back to my own experience with menstruation, I was terrified that it was going to limit, even though I grew up with like a very healthy, I feel like, relationship with like periods and cycles and menstruation. I was absolutely terrified it was going to limit my ability to participate in sports and the like, because I mean, I absolutely loved sports as a kid. I still do. um, and I think my mentality in sort of like middle school was just to still do everything and then just sort of deal with the consequences later. Be like, I think I might bleed through my pants, but I don't want to sacrifice being able to play football at recess. So I'm going to do it and then just be super embarrassed the rest of the day. um, but also just
That's
walking
one way
around.
to go about
Yeah.
it.
But walking around with like the constant anxiety of like, oh my god, can they tell I'm wearing a pad, you know,
Right.
can anyone
Yeah.
see, have I bled through?
Yeah.
And certainly, I mean, I rode horses for most of my childhood and teenage years, and you're wearing, I like, tan or white breeches,
Right.
riding a
Yeah.
horse, you're astride. That was, I was so nervous about that. But usually for me, at least, like the want, like the enjoyment in participating outweighed the nervousness.
Right.
But I
Yeah.
know for everyone that's not the case, and people don't know that, you know, some products work better than others.
Yeah.
So I know it holds a lot of people back from participating in sports. And I also want to note that it's not just women and girls who menstruate.
Mhm.
You know, that's something that definitely gets overlooked in these conversations, I think, is
Yeah.
focusing on that.
Yeah. Um, yeah, no, I think like it's funny to think that, you know, like people get so um weirded out by period products too. I
Mm-hmm.
remember um like trying to hide stuff, you know, and trying to like put them in like a specific little like pouch to make sure no one saw it, or
Mm-hmm.
you know, like kind of do the move where you're like hiding it in your bra when you go to
Yeah.
the bathroom, sort of,
Or
you
like up
know,
your
move
sleeve or
up the
something.
sleeve,
Or like
exactly.
whispering, hey, do you have a tampon I can borrow?
Yeah, and it was so funny. And you know, I remember one time I had like put it in my bra strap or something, and it fell out, and I thought that that was like the end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, you know, like, oh my god, everyone knows that I'm on my period, but why is that something that you're hiding? You know, like why
Yeah.
is that something that's I don't know, just like something to be ashamed of. I don't think that that's, you know, the case. Um, and yeah, I remember being asked multiple times by people like, "Oh, do you have something?" Or me asking multiple times, people,
Mm-hmm.
you know. and it's really cool to see like the sisterhood because
Yeah.
I've never been denied anything, I've never denied anybody anything either. So I'm personally, I don't use pads or tampons. I
Mhm.
use a menstrual cup because
Me
um
too.
I don't like the waste of it.
Mhm.
And I just think it's very convenient. It's like probably the most convenient thing ever. You're able to like wear it for hours at a time and not having to like change it multiple times. But in high school, when I started using the menstrual cup, I didn't want to ever deny anybody, pads or
Mhm.
tampons. So I would
Mhm.
still carry pads or tampons, you know, not
Oh,
like,
that is great. I love
but
that.
just in case. And it's really funny because someone had asked like what one of my friends who knows that I only use menstrual cups. She's like, "Why do you have pads or tampons still?" And I'm like, "Why not?" Because people still use them in my surrounding, and I never want to
Mhm.
be in that position where I'm like, "Oh no, I'm so sorry, I don't."
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, so I don't know. It is a little funny the embarrassment of having those, on your person.
Yeah, well, and just like the lack of knowledge, I think among women, and also or among, I should say, among menstruators, but especially non-menstruators. um it's really shocking because
Yeah,
I sometimes forget that not everyone sort of grew up with a very open
yeah,
conversation around these things, and sometimes something will come up in conversation and someone who doesn't menstruate in the room will just be like, wait, what? Like,
yeah,
what did you say? And then you'll have to explain it and be like, oh my God, people don't understand so much. And so that's
yeah,
why this may seem to anyone listening like a silly conversation to be having, but it's so vital to just like to talk about it and to have people share
yeah,
their stories and to normalize it. Like, it's the same as any other kind of bodily function.
yeah. And it was so funny because oh my god, I totally forgot what I was gonna say. Um no, there's a TikTok trend going around where women put tampons in water. I don't know if you've seen it, and then you
Yeah.
see how much it expands and how much it absorbs. And people are like losing their minds. And I don't know what guys thought, tampons were used for, like I don't know where they thought they were placed, but
Yeah.
I saw people like genuinely confused that you put it in your vagina. And I was
I
like, what do you
know.
mean? Like, where did you
Yeah.
those? I was like,
Yeah.
what? Where did you think that went? And then the same thing with pads. Like, um, I was explaining to my brother a few years ago about wings and how,
Mhm.
like pads without wings are just like really hard to place and
Mhm.
then not have the wings. And he's like, what do you mean? Where do they go? And I think he assumed that the wings like stuck to you. Um,
Oh,
and I was like,
ouch.
no,
I mean, sometimes
no,
they
not at
do and
all.
it sucks.
No, they do, but like you don't purposely do that. And
Yeah.
I love my hand movement, but I'm like, they go around the underwear, and he's like, "What?" So it's like
Yeah.
just like this very funny lack of knowledge and like lack of
Yeah.
understanding.
Yeah. And I think
I
it's
don't know.
great, the TikTok trends around menstruation that I've been seeing. I think they're
Yeah.
wonderful in bringing humor to the situation. I saw one that basically was like a menstruator passing their non-menstruating significant other some kind of period product and being like,
Mhm.
how do you think this is
Yeah.
used? And
Oh my gosh, are you
people
kidding me?
never
The
knew.
menstrual cups.
I know. And on the one hand, it was very funny. But on the other hand, I was sort of like, I don't think we
Yeah,
should be gratifying lack of knowledge with
I
humor.
know.
Like, there's a way to do both, and it's hard to walk the fine line between like invalidating experience and also creating joy in learning more,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. But I
Yes.
do sort of want to touch on something you said earlier, talking about like sustainability and periods. And I know it's a difficult thing that's, I think, getting a lot of really great attention right now in
Yeah.
how much waste is created globally from period products, which obviously the majority or the ones that are widely used and sold are disposable. and have a lot of plastic in them. But like you said, you use a menstrual cup. I do too. This is something that I've recently started doing. I use reusable pads for a long time and then sort of switched to tampons because in terms of like running and horseback riding and playing rugby, it was what worked best for me. And I wasn't ready to use a menstrual cup yet, but I have. It was a very tumultuous journey, to be honest. I don't know how it was for you, but menstrual cups were intimidating. At first, I was like, I totally got this. I have a great awareness of myself and my body. It's going to be no biggie at all.
No, it's hard.
That was not the case at all.
No, and I remember the first like few times I had used it, I was like, I don't think I could do this, on like a daily basis. But it's such a easy thing to do now,
Yeah.
and it's so like second nature. And so that's what I always tell people, because I've had a lot of people ask me like what they think about it, and if they think like I would recommend it.
Yeah.
I would always recommend them. I think those the most convenient but also the most secure form of like period products that I've ever used. And I've never like had like a massive flow, but I know people who, like have to like double up on stuff and use like multiple things at once, and I'll just like let them know that this is the best thing that I've used.
Yeah. And
Again,
if you
it's gonna be different for everyone, but I really like it. And it's always the same thing when I talk to people. The first few times is hell, but the second, the second time you have to use it, or like the third, fourth, you're gonna get used to it, and it's gonna be so much better. This is
I would say sponsor us, somebody. No, I'm kidding. Well, I'm not. No, I would say it took me more than 4 or 5 times to be super chill with it, and there were definitely some tears, but I would not discourage anyone. I think it's also been like the best process for me in terms of like connecting like my own like body and like not reproductive. I hate that because I don't plan on using this for reproduction of anyone. But
that's not what this is for.
But in terms of like my own cycle and like sustainability and the earth, and that has like, I don't know, I've really enjoyed that process of like being able to have sustainable habits connected to that.
And I've seen, like other stuff too, where I know that there's like the panties where they're supposed to be like super absorbent, or even like the reusable pads. I don't think I could get, use that. Just, personally, I think like the washing of it, or just like all of that, because with the menstrual cup it's really easy. You just like,
it's very self-contained. It all happens in
exactly. And so I think with like the fabric of the other, option is very no, I don't want to say weird, because that's the worst adjective I could use, but foreign to me, I guess. And I don't know if I would be able to like keep up with that. So, but again, this is all just like personal experiences. I've never met anybody who uses a reusable pad or the absorbent underwear. Have you really?
I used to use that was the first type of period product that I like grew up with and was familiar with, was reusable pads. My mom was way ahead of the trend in terms of that. She like no disposable pads in that house. So that was sort of like the first thing I knew. And I would say that they're great. They're like wonderful. They do take a little bit more effort in terms of you have to rinse them out. You have to stay on top of it. Otherwise, I mean, I don't use them right now because I live in sort of like a shared student house, and I wasn't sure how to like facilitate that, and I don't like pads as much. I tend to find them a little bit bulky and they don't work as well for me, so hence the menstrual cup. But everyone has a different preference. I know a lot of people who don't like tampons or menstrual cups that way. So something like reusable pads. I am really curious to try like period pants or underwear. I just haven't. They're all kind of expensive, and I'm sort of waiting till I'm like It really makes sense to buy them now because they're quite an
Yeah.
investment.
They are. I was
Yeah.
looking at I keep getting like a pop-up ad for one specific company, and I got really excited one time because they had like raving reviews
Mm-hmm.
about it. So
Mm-hmm.
I was actually gonna place my order, and then I saw that it was like $90 for like it was crazy for like two underwear.
$90. Oh wow.
It
Yeah.
was crazy.
Yeah. It's
So
a
I
lot.
don't know if I would go, do that now.
Well, which I
Maybe in
mean,
the
the nice
future.
thing is ultimately, which this actually brings up another good point, but like theoretically, or not theoretically, statistically, actually, in reality, it saves you money over time because a lot of
Yeah,
people, if you have to buy disposable products every month or every 2 months
right.
or especially a heavier flow, you end up spending a lot more on disposable products. Buying sustainable products can save you money over time.
Yeah.
However, they're usually more of an upfront investment. So people who would really benefit from the economic sustainability of being able to use reusable products often can't actually afford them, which is another thing that we could spend a long time talking about is period poverty,
Yeah.
and how we tend to think of that as something that only affects people in developing nations, but ultimately in the United States and in Britain, period poverty is a huge issue, especially on college and university campuses.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's crazy.
My
So
oh sorry.
no, go ahead.
My university, I will do like a little shout out here. My university here actually did a really incredible job of getting some funding, and so that they're able to send out period products for free for anyone who needs them, both disposable and reusable, which should be the norm for schools, globally, but it's just one way of combating the issue there.
Yeah. No, definitely 100%. I think a lot of stuff should be kind of calmed, automatically.
We haven't even talked about tampon tax. We haven't
Yeah.
even gotten there yet.
Well, I would even push it so far as like bras, because
Yeah.
but that's a completely other, you know, conversation that we could be having. So it was really funny because recently, I like had skipped a period, and that's always something very like scary, even though we're in COVID and
I
nothing's happening.
know.
Where I would be scared, that I
Yeah.
like missed a period. And so I looked it up, and I was reading this article, and it was really interesting, and I want to share this because I think this is going to help someone out. When you're stressed out, and it could be from school or work, you
Mhm.
can skip your period just from stress.
Mm.
Um, and then what happens, especially with young women and teenage girls, is that they get even more stressed out because they think that they might be pregnant, even if they're celibate. So
Yeah.
then the next month they also
Celibate.
skip their
Sorry.
periods. So it's this constant cycle of skipping your period and then being stressed out from schoolwork
Interesting.
and then stressed out because you're skipping your period. And I
Mm.
remember when it happened, I went through the like 10 stages of grief thinking I was like the next Immaculate Conception, you know? And
Jane the Virgin 2.0.
I think everyone's done that before. And it's so funny because like I was talking to my friends about it. Everyone's done it before where
Mm-hmm.
they're like late and they're like, "Oh my God." And even like the most virgin of virgins, and again, it is COVID right now. Nothing's happening in my life
Uh-huh.
where, I would be scared. um so it's just so weird that that's like kind of a shared experience. And when I was
Mm-hmm.
reading it, sure enough, they're like there have been so many people coming in to like, doctors or OBGYNs trying to get like tested and trying to make sure everything's okay, but it's just literally
It's
because of the stress
natural.
and that cycle.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
That's
And then
interesting.
yeah, it's just, another way that your uterus is like trying to kill you. From like a cycle of stress and like these ideas that it
That's funny.
implants in your mind.
Are
Yeah.
you one of those people who, I say one of those people, I am one of those people. Do you like track your period? Do you have an app for that or like a calendar or
Yeah,
anything? Yeah.
I do, just because I've gone to like the doctors and they ask me and I don't remember what day it is today.
Yeah.
So I have to be like, give me a second. Let me, look
No,
at my.
that's so funny. I used to be so bad about it. Like I used to have the app on my phone and I had a calendar where I was supposed to do it and I just never did it because like I don't really care. And then it sort of, it became something that I wanted to keep track of. And now I do better.
Yeah. And
But
it's funny because I used to have this one app and it was a really helpful app, but my phone had restarted and I forgot to re-download it. So I've been getting these emails and it's like, your period is like 538 days late. So, because I haven't gone
yeah.
on it and been like, no, and I keep forgetting to subscribe to it, but I keep getting these like messages. Yeah.
That is hilarious.
Periods are interesting.
They are. Would you ever, so I know there have been periods of time where I've been on birth control that stopped my periods. Have you, and I would say I actually quite enjoyed not having my period for a while. It was like a significant amount of time where I was like, this is great. I don't have to worry about it. And then I sort of started spotting and bleeding, but there was no regularity to it. And I was like, this is awful. I cannot stand this. Like, I will get off the birth control just to have like a regulated cycle again, because it's better than the irregularity. I couldn't tolerate that. Have you ever had an experience like that? What are your thoughts? Would you, if you had an option to do away with your period, would you?
That's really funny. That's a very weighted question because I don't know. This is the thing. I've gone through all these like different phases in my life where I'm like, get my uterus out of my body, please. There's no need for it. And it's just such a pain, and we could have this conversation about birth control in a completely other episode because I have a lot to say about it.
We do. We have it actually as an episode idea. So we'll get around to it.
It's literally an insane topic. So, but with birth control, I feel like there's no like good way to do it, because it's like, the one thing that's like the best chances for you is also something that messes with you hormonally. And I don't want to say that that's like something that is completely horrible, but for someone who also has like other medication that they need to take into account that also messes with you hormonally, that's like something that like I've had to like think about, because like I was on one, but then I found out that like melatonin cancels it out, which would
Really?
actually yes, melatonin could cancel out birth control. Also, antidepressants could cancel out birth control, which
I have heard that
is something that you need to discuss with your patient before you put them on both. And so it's just like this whole other like rabbit hole of stuff. And with me, I know that like like mental health, I really need to monitor hormone imbalances with like my mental health. So it's really weird to think with like the birth control that I've used in the past. It's like I could see stuff happening, where it's like I've become like really sensitive to stuff, or like like very I don't want to say erratic because that sounds like crazy, but like there's these like different side effects. So I've actually gone off birth control. Again, it's not like I need it.
I know, we're in COVID.
But it's something that in the future is necessary. So it's like, what do you do with that? And then going back to the whole period idea, I I would say I like knowing, like what's going on with my body. So to know that I have a regular period cycle is actually comforting to me. All the other stuff that it comes with is not comforting to me. But knowing that, okay, like those specific organs are, tip top shape.
Nice and squeaky clean.
Nice and squeaky clean. You're doing what you got to do. So I think if that was like completely out of my like routine,
Yeah.
I would feel a little weird about it.
Mhm.
Again, are periods something I want to be having? No, but it's something
But it
to like.
can be comforting. No, I felt the same way once I started bleeding again. After I went off birth control, I was like, oh, this is kind of nice. And then eventually I was sort of like, but I kind of miss a
Yeah,
time where I didn't have
yeah,
to worry about it.
yeah. You're like,
um, do you
I miss
have
my
like,
menstrual
oh, sorry. Yeah.
cup.
I think we should maybe start wrapping up. I think this is by far our longest episode yet.
Probably.
I think we're heading on to an hour now.
Oh, no.
Um,
Sorry, guys.
do you have a favorite like menstruating memory in your brain, or like a funny
I
experience
do.
or anything like that?
So, as we know, I'm a choir kid, or I don't think we know that, but I'm a choir kid.
We could
Um,
all tell just from
yeah, I don't
you
think that
being
was a
you.
secret. I think I have like choir memorabilia like all over my so yeah, so I'm a choir kid. And I remember we all synced up in our specific sections, like the alto synced up and then the soprano synced up. And then the altos and sopranos synced up together. And I remember that the guys were just like losing their minds. And it was a there were a few girls in the class who had like really bad cramps and really bad like period symptoms.
Uh-huh.
So it was just like a week of people being like very agitated and then people being on the floor like cramping up. And then I was like, oh my God, I made a comment and we were like in a sectional and I'm like, oh my God, I think I need to go like change or oh, you know what happened? Someone was like, "Oh, hey, Sophie, do you have a pad?" And
Mhm.
I'm like, "Oh, yeah." And then it was like, "Oh, hey, can I get one too? Can I get one too?" And then someone
Like
was like, "Oh, wait,
pads,
are you
pads,
off
pads
on
for
your
everyone.
yeah, no." And then someone was like, "Wait, are you on your period?" And then everyone said like in unison, "Yeah." And it was like it's not a small choir. We had like
But did
50
you
people in choir.
harmonize?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. It was the best thing ever, and it was funny because it's true, you do really sync up with people that you spend a lot of time with, and we spent a lot of time together, and that was, like, a concert week, so we had, like, extra, like, rehearsal time, and but we synced up, and I just thought it was the funniest thing because it's the altos, the basses, the tenors, or the tenors, the basses, and the sopranos. So, like, period, guys, period, like, it was, like, this really funny situation.
That is
I don't know.
hilarious.
I just thought it was the funniest thing because you always hear the stories about like teams syncing up,
Yeah,
but our choir synced up. So I love that.
that is
Yeah, it was very
fantastic.
funny.
And with that, I think we should say farewell to everyone. Um, if you're listening on Apple,
As you can tell, we could talk about this forever.
literally,
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
feel
You
like
were
there.
lagging. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no, 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 you're okay. I feel like we could honestly, there are so many things that we didn't even get to touch on. Maybe a part
Yeah.
two. I don't know. We'll see. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or whatever platform, to be honest, please like this. If you can rate us, please do. That really helps us out. Leave a review. Favorable would be great. If you didn't like it, maybe don't leave a review. Um, subscribe. And thank you for listening. If you have a story you want to share about your period, drop us a message. We'd love to hear what you have to say.
I would love to get a laugh. That would be great.
Yeah.
If it's a funny story, but if it's not a funny story, then I would love to hear it still.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for listening. Catch you next time.
Bye.